If your team got guaranteed money, tell them call me.
Whoop. Make me say, my.
I done been around the world.
Yeah, I was made for this.
Player Performance with J.A. Cavalier.
Welcome to NBA Player Performance, Tuesday, October 29th, 2024. We have a great show for you guys today, bringing conversation and official takes to 4 NBA games, and it is an opportunity to dominate. Today's show features myself, the Shark, as the host, and of course, giving official plays, the prop master, Luke Shuey, Downtown Junior Brown, and Coach Rick. Before we get into the show, I just want to tell you guys, make sure you head on over to whylose.com. That is YLOSE.com for extra packages and VIP plays. Make sure you drop a like, thumbs up on the show, and comments if you like the show. If you don't like the show, drop your plays. We will interact with you guys as well. Now, it's time for the show. Let's get into it. Mavericks at Timberwolves. Big game here on national TV at 7:30 in Minneapolis. A rematch of the Western Conference Finals. A series that was 1-5 by Dallas, but some tight games in there. Probably a massive revenge game here for Minnesota tonight. Junior Brown in the house with a beautiful background. Just noting before the show here. And Junior, I think a beautiful total between two defensive teams under 222.
It's funny because that's the new Dallas identity, right? They've been playing defense since they started the playoff run that took them all the way to the finals. And they started off the season playing pretty solid defense. Not as good as that level, but much better than the level they were at in the first half of last season, which was not acceptable. On the under 222 because of the spot, them having played an altitude game yesterday. It's a really tough spot for them. They've played quite a few games in the last couple of days, so Minnesota's have the rest advantage. But more importantly than that, we can't ignore the emotional element of this game. You're not going to tell me that this game doesn't mean a lot to Minnesota, a young up-and-coming team. And Dallas is using this game as a measuring stick. So I think you're going to see playoff-like intensity for whatever that means in October. But these teams will be hyped up to play each other, and this game will matter. As far as Dallas' side, they should be encouraged by the fact that, even though Luka can't hit water, if he was in a boat in the middle of the ocean right now, they're still somehow getting wins. And he's playing a lot smarter, getting fewer turnovers. I think they'll play at a slower pace, especially against a defense like Minnesota's. And Minnesota offensively, we know what their struggles can be. Ant's usage rating has gone way up, but in my opinion, and Shark, I think you kind of already know what I'm going to say. These teams that don't have a point guard, they really, really scare me, especially in the second half of games when things get tight. I'm going to definitely be on the second half under, but official play, full game under 222.
Yeah, and, as you mentioned last night, an under played against Utah 110-102. And, we had talked about this last year at the trade deadline. You said it, they became a defensive team, and it was really Jason Kidd honing in on this group after some pretty integral trades. Daniel Gafford, some other guys playing great defense. Obviously, P.J. Washington completely reinvented from his old Kentucky self as a center. Now a 3-and-D type of guy. But I think even more noteworthy, Klay Thompson comes over here. And a lot of people remember Klay Thompson for being one of the Splash Brothers. This guy's an elite defender. And he's just going to ramp up the defense even more. And Minnesota last year, I believe, had the number 1 defensive rating in the league. This definitely is going to be a playoff-style game tonight. And speaking of roster changeover, Julius Randle not on the Knicks anymore, on the Timberwolves. And Luke, the prop master, looking at his rebounds over 7.5.
I am going over here, Shark. I can't help but love Randall to grab some boards tonight. So if you look historically, he's averaged 8 or more rebounds for all 9 years of playing in the NBA. Yes, that was on the Lakers, Knicks roster, so very different team. But he's 6'9", 255. He's looking leaner this year. He's looking energetic. I love the way he's playing and getting after it. He should be able to grab enough boards for us to cover this line against the Mavs team that's coming off back-to-back. Minnesota hasn't played since Saturday. I think Randall is aggressive in this one. He's gone over this number 2 of 3 games so far this year. And the last piece that, this might be an interesting take. People might not love this, but the public gets scared away on rebound totals when Rudy Gobert is on a roster. Yeah, he puts up 12 rebounds a game, so everyone else is going to, fade everyone else, right? I don't buy that. I actually think that the Mavericks and their centers and power forwards focus on Gobert. They want to get him out of the paint. I think that lends itself to more Randall opportunities on the boards. So again, I love his over here. Take over 7.5.
Yeah, and just one final point on that. We talked about this with a couple of the other games. There's some very unique calendar spots tonight, and Dallas finds themselves in one of them. 3rd and 4 back-to-back, 4th and 6. And if you talk about the rebounding prop market here, when a team is fatigued, rebounding is more of an effort stat than anything else. The effort might not be there on the boards. So I think that's really a nice looking over there. And of course, Minnesota in a massive revenge game here off of the Western Conference Finals. I could only look to the Wolves. I did think the game might be a little sketchy against the spread. Oftentimes these 5 or 6 point lines are very close, 3-bucket possession lines. So best of luck to anybody betting the ATS side in this game. Junior Brown with the beautiful background, under 222, and the prop master Luke Shuey, Randall over 7.5 rebounds.
Book it.
It's cash.
Nuggets at Nets. Out of conference basketball tonight on this Tuesday. Nuggets laying a short-ish -5.5, and the total 218.5. A lot of moving parts in this game. Really tough spot for Denver. We're throwing it to Luke first. A prop from the prop master under Cam Thomas, 3.5 assists.
Yeah, so I love this line. I just think my analytics have this as a full assist off of what the line should be. It should be sitting at 2.5. And here's why. I mean, Cam Thomas averages, just 2.7 assists per game through 3 games. He's not hit this number yet this year. And historically, he never hits this number. I know he hasn't played as many minutes as he will this season, but he was playing 30 plus last year and put up less than 3 assists per game. And as we all know, he has a ridiculous green light to shoot the ball. The man's shooting 22 shot attempts per game. He's kind of all they have, and he just keeps firing. And trust me, he's not looking to pass. He's looking to shoot. It equates to his 30 points per game so far this year, but it's not efficient. It's not a way to win a game for Brooklyn. And what I do like is Denver to be able to kind of lock him down a little bit. The Nuggets have always been, the last few years, one of the better defensive teams. And I really think they just kind of get the ball out of his hands and not even let him get shots or assists in this game. And then we trend back to last year. He's hit under this in 8 of his last 10 games. 80% hit rate. Sign me up for it any day of the week. I love Cam Thomas under 3.5 assists.
Yeah, you said it. This guy just looks for a shot. He is not a distributor in any capacity. So I think the under's a sharp look there. And speaking of the under, Coach on the under, myself on the under. As we mentioned, Denver in a really tough spot here. Coach, talk to me on this.
Yeah, so, they went to overtime last night. Then you got to get on a plane, you got to travel. And, I don't think that Malone does a real good job of managing this when they're playing back to back. Then you've got the pace factor as well. Brooklyn has really slowed down their games. So I think it's a combination of fatigue, slower pace. That points me to the under 217.5.
Yeah, fully aligned there. An official play for me here, under 218.5. I think you can still get that in the market now. And, as Coach said, really a tough spot for Denver here. They have not performed well in the Malone era in these back-to-backs. This is more than just a back-to-back. 3rd and 4, road back-to-back. Traveling across the border from Toronto to Brooklyn. Not only that, early season clustered scheduling here, 4 in 6 nights. You rarely see this type of calendar spot. It really is an awful spot. And, Coach said it in terms of the pace. Brooklyn in the offseason hired a new coach, Jordi Fernandez. I wasn't totally familiar with this guy, but I did some research. He's the current head coach for the Canadian national team. He came up with Spain. He actually did coach Nigeria as well in the international market. I think a really noteworthy point about that, if you guys watch FIBA basketball, there's a lot less points in the game. They do play a slightly smaller game from a time standpoint. I believe they only play 40 as opposed to 48, but the pace is slow. It's more physical, and it really is stylistically different than wide open NBA basketball. And Brooklyn is only allowing their opponents to attempt 76.3 field goal attempts this year per game, which is so far lower than league average for the last 7 years, which is 88.5. And I think you're going to see that tonight. I think there's also a very nice polarization here with Brooklyn. Brooklyn is actually 2-0 to the road over this year. Caught a track meet in the opener at Atlanta. Also went over within the Southeast at Orlando, a shooting outlier game. 1-0 to the home under. Held Milwaukee to 102 points. I think they're going to really turn up consistently at Barclays. And final point on this. Last year, these teams did play at Barclays. 122 to 117 over on a 231.5. Books see that over. Similar rosters moving all the way down to 219. I have this game potentially to be under 210 points tonight. A lot of stuff going on in this game. We're making a game more exciting than it probably will be. That is the beauty of sports betting. Sure. We have Luke on the under, Cam Thomas, 3.5 assists, and a collaboration, myself and Coach, under in the game, 218.5. Pelicans at Warriors, a national game, potentially lackluster. No Steph Curry tonight. Pelicans laying on the road, -1.5, and a total at 217.5. And a really interesting calendar spot. These teams play back-to-back games at the Chase Center. This is coming off of back-to-back games in Portland for the Pelicans. Two disgusting efforts specifically for the legend himself, Duke's finest, Zion Williamson. Luke has taken notice of this, and Luke is buying low on Zion tonight, taking the PRA points, rebounds, and assists over 34.5.
I am, and it has been pathetic. I mean, honestly, not even just by Zion in general, but you guys cap the games. I'm lucky to do props on this one because I don't know how to cap this game. It's without Steph, you got Zion sucking ass, and and look at what the Pelicans did. I think most people thought they'd smash mouth Portland that first game. They get blown out by 22 points. They face the same Blazers team. They're losing the whole game, and they eke out a small 2-point win. So I don't know what's going to happen there. What I do like, though, is that everyone seems to now be fading Zion because he's been horrible. I mean, he's shooting 26% from the field through 2 games. Off the air, we're saying, how does a guy shoot 26% when he should be just dunking the ball every time? But what I do like is actually him to kind of flip that and improve tonight. Last year, he shot 57% from the field. There's a 30% window here where he should be improving. And what we do have a silver lining, he's gotten to the free throw line 24 times in 2 games. If he continues to do that, he should rack up enough points here to get 20 plus. And you know he can get the boards and assists kind of anytime. What I do like, and maybe you guys have a comment on this, is also his matchup here. I think the Warriors will probably put Draymond on him to get in his head and probably try and frustrate him. But Zion is too physical. I actually think it could work the other way around. I think he gets fouls on Draymond, and I think he gets him out of the game early, possibly for the Pelicans' success here. So I'm over 34.5 PRA. Curious to hear your take on this.
Yeah, I honestly don't think that there's a good matchup for the Warriors because obviously Draymond Green, slightly later on in his career here, and I don't think you're going to throw Trace Jackson Davis on this guy. And Kevon Looney is sort of the notorious Kevon Looney, UCLA product, injured, never been the most nimble guy on the court. I think you're really onto something here. And as you said, we were trying to figure out how does Zion go 3 for 12 on all dunks? This sounds like a bad NBA dunk contest from the past couple years. 20 attempts in these games. And I think he has to bounce back here. The matchup really is great. Coach, any thoughts on this game?
Well, I think the real question is, what's the over/under on the number of cheeseburgers Zion's going to eat? But yeah, I don't know how you pick a side here. If I was, maybe I lean on New Orleans. I don't know. I think one play that might make sense is the under. You got no Steph. New Orleans actually can defend the perimeter, so I think they can slow down the onslaught of threes that they're going to jack up tonight. Both teams trend under, and 12 of the last 16 when they came together, all under the total. Maybe you lean on the under.
I don't mind that. I actually, and one thing we haven't brought up yet is I really think that New Orleans, like, kind of, yeah, they're 2-1, but they're slow play out of the gates here. I think they're missing Jonas Valanciunas. I think he really was an integral part of their offense and defense, and I just don't think that gets talked about enough. They're young. They're going to be really good this year, but it's just, I think it's taken some time.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
totally agree. And obviously, they had brought on DeJounte Murray, and he got hurt in the first game. So that has
Yep.
really killed their ability to score the basketball. And as you guys said, it just seems like potentially a lackluster game. A bit of a tough read without Steph Curry. This is, a thing in this league. Oftentimes, without the best player, the backups show up with immense energy, and the game just takes on a completely different capacity and game flow. So I think the
Yep.
game is very unpredictable. For years, I have advised people to take the team without their best player, particularly early season, due to this fact that they do play up. So I could see the Warriors actually showing up and catching the Pelicans napping in this spot tonight. And then maybe the Pelicans finally awaken from this early season slumber and bounce back tomorrow night in the same gym. So that's it for this game. Luke officially on Zion over points, rebound, and assist 34.5. It is an opportunity to dominate. Closing out this one, we will see you guys for the next game. Kings at Jazz on a Tuesday in Utah. Big time ball here, surprisingly for many. Again, the beauty of sports betting, making a non-championship game into a great conversation. Sacramento is laying 6.5 in this game. The total is 234.5. Welcome to the show, Junior. Your first official over 234.5.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward cap for me. Two teams that do not prioritize defense, both coming off back-to-back situations. Even though, historical data can sometimes be flawed because of roster turnover, these two teams pretty much have the same core. I understand that DeMar DeRozan was added to the Kings, but the Kings core is still the same. Same thing for Utah. And when you go back and look at the three matchups from last season, the Kings beat them all three times by an average net rate of 19 points per 100 possession, which is an insane number. The Kings were scoring 128.6 points per 100 possessions, and not to throw out big numbers, we always want to give context, Shark. I love that. So to give context, the Celtics led the league last year with 123 points per 100. So if you're dropping 128 per 100, obviously you have a clear advantage over the other team. At the same time, this Utah team is full of young guys that have improved as well, and I think they'll be able to put up enough points to get us over this 234.5 total.
Yeah, I would agree. I see a lot of points coming here tonight. This is a Utah team that is really not defending at all. As you mentioned, this roster is mostly young guards that shoot and they run, and it's just a style of play that leans towards tons of points. My official play tonight, taking the Jazz actually at plus 6.5 for one unit. And, Junior, you mentioned it. Sacramento did dominate this matchup last year. Wins by 16, 21, and 21. But I do want to remind you guys, at the end of last year, Utah was actually about 500 through 50-something games, and oddly just took their players off the floor and tanked the season. And that seemed to be when those blowouts really developed. And so you see these blowouts, and now you see the line open actually at 4.5. Incredibly, incredibly short. So I see that line and I do some research, and that's what we're going to discuss here. Both teams come in on a back-to-back, but I don't think these back-to-backs are created equally. Utah did play last night at Dallas, did cover 110 to 102. Key point here, though, 2 full nights of rest before last night. Not the same here for Sacramento at all. Home road back-to-back, 3rd in 4 final leg, and 4th in 6 nights to open the season. And Junior mentioned it, but DeMar DeRozan has come over here. And this is not just Kings basketball in 2024. This is historical NBA basketball. You bring a big-time player onto your team, it takes time to figure out how to flow. And Sacramento has not looked good this year, really, at all. And final point on this, as I mentioned before, Sacramento has dominated this matchup, and the line is plummeting towards Utah. Utah is 2-1 ATS, and oftentimes when a team has lost every game so far, but is trending up against the spread, it means they're about to win a game. I think Utah could get an outright win here tonight. Coach, any thoughts on this game?
I'll throw this out there just to play devil's advocate. Two things. One, does altitude affect Sacramento? Maybe. I don't know. And then I took a look at last year. I think the Kings played 15 back-to-backs. I think they averaged 111, 112 points. Is it worth taking a look at the under on their team total, which I think was 120 and a half?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, actually, because I had written down here, I think, a pretty interesting point. You mentioned Sacramento had 15 back-to-backs last year. They did actually go 6 and 9 ATS, which, in my opinion, is kind of right on the average because you're not supposed to be ATS efficient in this fatigue spot. But I think even more importantly, they actually started last year, early season, 0 and 5 ATS. First 5 back-to-back final legs. So it's early season. They're not highly focused, and they really do just let down in this spot. And those 5 non-covers came by an average of 15.8 points per game, really just blowouts. And that's where I said I think Utah could actually win this game tonight. And as you mentioned, another great point, the altitude is a brutal element to playing in Utah. They played last night. This is the 4th and 6th. Now you got to go up to the mountains and play a fast Utah team. I think Utah could get a W tonight. Big conversation here for a game, again, that is not on national TV. That is one of the best points about sports betting. Conversation wins. Couple officials, Junior Brown, over 234.5. Myself, the Shark, Jazz, plus 6.5. Let's cash these ones.
Tell me what you gonna do now. Keep rolling.
Thank you guys for tuning in and watching NBA player performance on this Tuesday, October 29th. 2024. Make sure you head on over to ylose.com, YLOSE.com for free picks, stats, trends, and more. For the prop master Luke Shuey, Downtown Junior Brown, and Coach Rick, I am your host, the Shark, and of course, Jay Cavalier on vacation this week. We'll be back with picks tomorrow. Remember, yesterday was a memory. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. Be in the now, bet responsibly, bet the sharp takes with us, and let's dominate.
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last